Hello everyone, Jolene here from Bookworm Adventure Girl. Welcome back. I hope that you are all well. This is where I talk about the books that I'm reading. I like to read diverse books and I highlight Canadian literature. If you are new to my channel, thank you so much for checking it out and for checking out some videos. Please hit subscribe and stick around. Today it is time for another book list. I love book lists. You know, can one have too many book lists? I've been doing a lot of them lately, but I don't think so. And today I'm going to be highlighting some books from the 100 best books of 2024, according to the Globe and Mail. They have several different genres, including kids and young adult books, and also cookbooks. So I won't be going through all 100 books, but I have about 30, maybe just over 30, 35, 36 that I want to highlight. And the genres that I will be going over are Canadian fiction, international fiction, Canadian nonfiction, international nonfiction, and I threw mysteries in there just for some fun. So if you would like to see the entire list, I will leave the article in the description box below. Please go and check it out. So let's start with Canadian fiction. The first book is one that I have talked about before, and that is Death by a Thousand Cuts by Shashi Bhat, who I had the privilege of meeting at WordFest, which was great fun. So this is a collection of short stories that follows several women as they struggle to live and overcome obstacles. The next book is A Way to Be Happy. This is by Caroline Adderson, who is an author that I have had on my radar for a while. And this is another short story collection, and it deals with themes of happiness, gender, fear, and loneliness. The next book has the most amazing cover. It's Curiosities by Fleming. This is a book about a researcher who stumbles on a series of 17th century manuscripts with clashing accounts of events that took place in and around the lives of two girls. So Joan and Thomason, they first met as child survivors of the plague that hit their English village, and then they later reunite as adult lovers. And one of them is a cross-dresser. Next is a romance from Carley Fortune, who I read because of Canada Reads this year. It's This Summer Will Be Different. This is her most recent publication. It takes place in Prince Edward Island, and this is the story of Lucy and Felix and whether or not they are meant for each other. I have a feeling that they are, but I haven't read it, so we'll see. The Pages of the Sea by Anne Hawke. I love a good coming-of-age story, so I'm interested in this one. It takes place in the 1960s on a Caribbean island where young sisters are left in the care of their aunts and cousins. Another author that's been on my radar for a while, and that is Prairie Edge by Conor Kerr. This novel is about two Métis people trying to find some purpose by releasing a herd of bison into Edmonton's River Valley. I've been wanting to read Conor Kerr for a while. Next is a book that's been on my TBR for a while as well, and that is Camp Zero by Michelle Min Sterling. This is a dystopian novel that takes place in 2049, so not that far into the future, but oil has been banned. Next is Code Noir by Canisia Lubrin. This is the book that I'm currently reading and that I spoke about when I talked about WordFest. Each chapter or section of this novel is based on the 59 decrees that were set out by Louis XIV in 1685. And they governed the treatment of slaves in the French colonies for almost 200 years. I am really happy to be reading this with Lindy from Lindy's Magpie Reads, and yeah, we'll see how that goes. So, up next is Hi, It's Me by Fawn Parker, And this is a novel, but it seems to be based on Fawn's mother, who died by maid, and I would be interested in seeing how this book handles that topic. A book that is high on my TBR is The Cure for Drowning by Loghan Paylor, and I've heard really, really good things about this book. It takes place in the 1930s in Ontario, and it follows Kit, who becomes drawn into a love triangle when someone new comes to town. Here's a good title for you. Batshit 7 by Sheung-King. I've read his other novel, You Are Eating an Orange, You Are Naked. Also an interesting title. And when I read that, I said that I'd be interested in reading more of his writing, so here we are. Batshit 7 is about a character who may not be named in the book. I'm not positive, but I don't believe, like, he didn't name his characters in his other book either. Anyway, the main character is living in Hong Kong during the protests and police crackdowns. And an interesting thing about this book is that it has QR codes woven throughout it, and they serve as a visual metaphor for the protagonist's disaffection. So I think that's kind of neat. I'd like to see what that's all about. Next up is a debut, Songs for the Brokenhearted by Ayelet Tsabari, maybe? This is about Yemeni Jews and 3 perspectives. There's more to it, I'm sure, but it sounds pretty good. Next is one of my favorite authors, In Winter I Get Up at Night by Jane Urquhart. This is about a woman reflecting back on her life, the time that she spent in a children's ward, and she also remembers powerful male figures that she met during her early morning commutes to her job, and it takes place in rural Saskatchewan. So I am waiting for this one to come out in paperback, so then I'll pick it up. I'm sorry if you can hear my dogs playing, they're having a good time over there. This next debut sounds very evocative, Dayspring by Anthony Oliveira. It's described as 1 part experimental gay fiction, 1 part smut, and all gospel. So this is a queer reimagining of the story of Christ. Sounds interesting. Okay, moving on to international fiction. The first book probably needs no introduction. It's been everywhere. James by Percival Everett, which has won awards, including the Booker. This is a retelling of The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn from the perspective of Jim, who was the slave. And I will get to this eventually. I need to read some Percival Everett. So another book that has been talked about on YouTube a lot is The Safekeep by Yael Vander Wouden. Another debut novel. It's set in the Netherlands, and it's about the trauma of the war years, and it has a love story. Next is another author that I've been meaning to read more of, Long Island by Colm Toibin. This is the sequel to Brooklyn, and it's set 20 years later. Brooklyn has also been on my TBR for a while, so I need to really get to both of them. Another author that I have been wanting to read, this is a common occurrence, and who probably needs no introduction, is Playground by Richard Powers. This is about 2 men who bonded in private school over their love of the game Go. But they have some kind of falling out when they attempt to design a computer game called Playground. Another debut that's been mentioned a lot, and people seem to either really get along with it or they really don't, and it's Headshot by Rita Bullwinkle. This is basically about 8 young female boxers and a tournament that they go to, and then you learn about each girl. Up next is Clear by Karis Davies, and I like the premise of this. During the Scottish clearances of the mid-19th century, which is not something I really know anything about. Yeah, I would say I know nothing about it at all. A Presbyterian minister is dropped off on a remote island in the North Sea, and he's supposed to expel the only person living on that island, and instead the pair end up forming a really deep connection. This next book is high on my TBR, The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. This is a thriller about two siblings who disappeared 14 years apart. A number of people have recommended this to me, saying that I would really like it, and I do think that it's one that I will really enjoy. The next category is Canadian nonfiction. Now, I've done a few videos recently on this topic, and my friend Lindy and I did the 28 best Canadian nonfiction of the 21st century, which was voted on by all of you. And I recommended some books for the Reading Across Canada challenge as well. There's some overlap, but there's a few different ones. So I will link both of those videos below if you are interested in checking out some more Canadian nonfiction. Then yeah, please head on over there. I have 6 Canadian nonfiction books to highlight from the Globe and Mail's list. And first is In Exile by Sadia Ansari, who takes readers on a journey as she seeks the truth behind a family secret. And the big question is, why did her grandmother abandon her 7 children to follow a man from Pakistan to a tiny village in Punjab? Next is an author that I have talked a lot about on my channel, and I'm hoping to read this book before the end of the year, and it is The Knowing by Tanya Talega. So in this, Tanya Talega is looking at colonialism's impact on Indigenous peoples, and in this particular book she is attempting to find out how her maternal great-great-grandmother ended up buried in an unmarked grave on the grounds of a, in quotes, lunatic asylum. So this is big on my list. Up next is a memoir, Hereafter by Amy Lynn, and this is about widowhood and grief. Amy's husband died at 32 after they had only been married just a few months. Another book that I think will be difficult to read, but I'm glad that they are shedding light on this. It is Invisible Prisons by Lisa Moore and Jack Whalen. And this is the story of Jack Whalen, who was at the Whitbourne Boys' Home in Newfoundland for 4 years in the 1970s. And he's now suing the government of Newfoundland and Labrador. He's also battling cancer, and he wanted this to be a way that the world could bear witness. And Lisa Moore kind of brings in some fictional aspects as well, so it's kind of interesting. I'm looking forward to reading it. Sing Like Fish by Amarina Kingdon. If you like environment or nature books, then this might be for you. So technology is revealing that underwater acoustics or fish singing is happening, and humans are basically drowning it all out and not paying attention. So I think that there might be a lot to learn from this. And then the final nonfiction is a book that I just recently talked about and recently picked up, and it's from a local author here in Calgary, and it's called The Widow's Guide to Dead Bastards by Jessica Waite. So Jessica's husband died young and very unexpectedly when he was on a business trip, and then she finds out that he was not who she thought he was, and there had been affairs, a pornography addiction, and a drug habit, and she's now raising their son as a single parent. So I am hoping to get to this one by the end of the year. Okay, so moving on to international nonfiction, I have 5 books that I want to highlight. The first is Knife by Salman Rushdie. This, you may have already heard of it, is the memoir that Rushdie wrote after being stabbed while he was on stage in 2022. That's high on my list to check that out. This next book is an international nonfiction book, but it's actually about a Canadian. So it's called Traveling on the Path of Joni Mitchell, and it's by Anne Powers, who is a music critic. And it seems that she didn't interview Joni for this book, but she interviewed peers and came to Canada to follow the evolution of Joni Mitchell's career. So that might be interesting. This next book has inspired me to read all of this author's memoirs, which are about her upbringing in Africa. So this is her fourth memoir, and it's called Fee. It's by Alexandra Fuller, and it is about the sudden death of her 21-year-old son, Fee. This next one I think will be interesting and maybe fun. It's called The Notebook by Roland Allen. Now, this isn't Nicholas Sparks' Notebook by any means. This is an ode to notebooks. It looks at paper and the notebook and the impact that it has on, or that it has had on the world around us. So I can't even imagine, like, where would you begin to start a book like that? So, but I'm definitely interested in finding out. The last nonfiction is another environmental book, and it's called Still as Bright by Christopher Kokonos. This book explores our long regard for Earth's alluring companion, ranging from prehistoric evidence of the moon being used as a calendar to contemporary pursuit of elusive transient lunar phenomena. So many of the nonfiction books on this list, were about nature and environment, history and war. So if any of that interests you, please be sure to, check the entire list out, because I left a number of books off that might interest you. So the final category that I want to highlight some books from is mystery. I have 4 books that I want to mention. And first is The Hunter by Tana French. I can't believe that I still have not read any Tana French books. This is a sequel to The Searcher, which I've heard a lot of good things about. So I really, really need to read the first book before this one. But this does continue the story and the character of the retired police officer Cal Hooper. The next book is also a sequel, and it's called The Sequel by Jean Hanff Korelitz. I read the plot earlier this year and quite liked it, and this book focuses on the wife who takes over her late husband's career and his success. So I'm really interested to see where this goes, and if Korelitz is able to pull me in like she did in the last one, because I wasn't sure about the last one at first, but I ended up really liking it. So another author that I can't believe I haven't read, and also a book that's part of a series, and it's Death at the Sign of the Rook, and by Kate Atkinson. So you can see some Kate Atkinson books over here. This follows Detective Jackson Brodie, who is called to a sleepy Yorkshire town over a stolen painting. So this is really more, for me, of a reminder to start reading some Kate Atkinson. The final book that I want to highlight from the Globe and Mail list is The Return of Ellie Black. It's by Emiko Jean. So Ellie Black has been missing for 2 years, and she won't or can't say where she's been or who took her. And it says that this is a terrific psychological suspense and one heck of a plot twist. So I'm in. I love that. Okay, so these are all of the books that I am really interested in from the Globe and Mail list. One I'm reading, several of them are on my TBR, and some that are new to me, which I really like when a book list has that. So what about you? Have you read any of these books? If so, are there any that you recommend that I should start with? Any that you think I'd really like? Or are you interested in reading any of these? Are there any books that you think they missed on this list? Let me know all about it. And if you don't feel like typing a comment, not a problem. You don't have to. Maybe just leave a globe or mail emoji so that I know you're here and that you're around. I look forward to chatting with you in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and don't forget to make every day an adventure.